Welcome to Blamestorming. The Blamestorming. In a post-truth world, there's plenty of blame to go around. 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 Join Dave Sirus and Maryssa Smith as they blamestorm about today's hot topics.
Hey guys, welcome to Blamestorming. I'm Maryssa Smith. As always, I've got Dave Sirus with me.
Yeah.
And this week, we've got Sallyann Hall with us.
What? Hello, guys.
And we have Lia Braswell.
Hi.
So,
Lia is a musician, not a comedian, which we've had other things. We've had
I'm
lawyers.
a funny musician.
We've had lawyers who do comedy.
We've had we've had a congressman. He's now a congressman.
He actually won.
He won.
We interviewed Josh Harder in what we considered a pretty red area, and actually Orange County is all blue now. Did you know that?
Yeah.
The area that people thought of as being very conservative has actually it's all blue. California was one of the biggest successes of the blue wave, where we took back all these local offices, which, by the way, basically happened because typically, you know, New Yorkers, Californians don't mind voting for Republicans for local office or even congressional office. It's only now that they've aligned themselves with such a hideously ugly ideology that I think a lot of people are turning against them. Because, you know, New York used to have Republican governors all the time, Republican mayors.
Well, I'm not going to say Josh Harder won because he did our show, but I will say that everyone that did not do our show lost.
Yes. And he didn't take my advice about how to use his name for his campaign ads. But I just feel like if your name is Harder, you really got to turn into that skid. But yeah, a lot of people won. And actually, which brings up something I wanted to bring up today. When we talk about the toxicness of the Republican ideology, nothing, and just the idea that it isn't that where Trump is all about just making enemies between people and just getting people to fight, because only in fight or flight does he not get noticed as insane. Trump again today demanded that the Supreme Court take up his transgender military ban.
Unfucking.
Now, we should start by just saying how it's already bizarre that he even said the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court only exists for cases that have been bumped up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Right.
And this has not.
Exactly.
He wants it to go straight to the Supreme Court because that's what a confused 73-year-old man says when something's important to him. This should be in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what if it's just in a regular federal appeals court and they make the decision? No, Supreme Court, because my ideas are important.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. I'm like, is it just a power thing? Like, why the fucking rush? Like, obviously hateful, bad policy, but we already know that right. No one is surprised by that. The rush, the urgency. What? Why?
No one cares. Like, that's the thing about this transgender military ban. Who's talking about this? Who is out there demanding this? He just wants things to upset people. It's why he keeps bringing up Colin Kaepernick. He just wants anything to create enemies between Americans.
And the reasons for all of this happening for the transgender, you know, like attacks is because they think, I mean, I was just reading about this yesterday, but what it was saying was that the transgender, a man who, you know, is sort of, who like, transitions, and is in combat or is fighting against another woman makes people uncomfortable or makes the situation just like strange and uncomfortable or awkward. That's what I was reading, at least, was that it's like a matter of like the genders fighting each other, and that
which is the same exact reason they gave for women not being able to serve in the military to begin with.
Yeah.
So they're just reusing that old argument.
Wait, what's the old argument? Sorry.
That like men couldn't.
Men don't want to shoot ladies.
Oh.
Or that,
or fight,
or that
general.
you're not going to want to fight. But it's like, but there's women and men.
They don't trust like that. They can trust a woman in the same like platoon or in the trenches. And part of it is because like the men are going to desire these women, and the women are going to be distracting them, and that they need to focus on fighting and not like trying to.
Well,
like,
really,
bang
with the
these
transgender
soldier
one though,
ladies.
it's just about saying, well, you know, there's guys there I assume that hate them, so they're not going to want to shoot straight. That's essentially the argument. And
that's
and what the current policy is, the current compromise that Mattis made with Trump for his "we need to get rid of them all now" was you're allowed to be transgender in the military if you do not transition, as in you don't do anything, you just believe it in your heart. And you have to serve with your biological sex. Which means, here's the thing. They talk about this being about military preparedness. That doesn't create preparedness at all. All that does is saying we want to punish the trans people for doing something so wrong. Because it doesn't help the other platoons when a trans man is showering with these other women. That's not what they want. They look like men. They're men. A trans woman is more a trans woman, the typical trans woman in the military, women are going to be more comfortable in a shower with her than men. Right. That's common sense. Have you,
absolutely.
Have you seen, do you know any trans men? Like, I know a few trans men, and I've seen trans men who were representative of the military. They don't look like fucking women. They don't belong in a women's locker room. It's disgusting. They're trying to act, really, they're punishing the regular people there too by saying to punish them, we want you to feel uncomfortable around him as a punishment to him, but a little bit to you too. But we want to use your discomfort as a cudgel against them.
But it's also kind of like babying cisgendered heteronormative people. Like, you can't be trusted to treat this person as a human being, and you can't be trusted to be able to fight like against a common enemy with your fellow like soldier. It's ridiculous. And like, there's been trans people in the military since the beginning of the military. This has never been a problem. I don't know. I think that he realized one day that like Caitlyn Jenner was hot, and then he's like, let's get rid of all trans people. Like, you know,
that's the urgency.
I think it was just like,
the sooner it gets passed by the Supreme Court, the less gay I am.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's part of it. But I think it's also him assuming that that's something that millions of men think too. But really, I think with the racism and the transphobia, while he does think these things, I think he does them purely out of a sense that this is how I attain power. By just taking advantage of the ugliest, dumbest, most hateful people in this country. They're the only ones who will fall for my bullshit.
Well, I don't think that Trump is just like turning and tossing in his sleep, just being like, transgenders fighting for our country makes me so mad. Like, he definitely doesn't give a shit. You're right. He's just trying to like stoke a fire and being like, who, like, what is a marginalized group that I can just throw a fucking stone at right now?
I mean, if Hitler actually had no problem with Jews, would that really make him any less of a bad person?
Seriously.
Would it really make a difference?
If he didn't really believe?
Right. Like, people say that. They're like, it doesn't matter if he believes or not. I'm like, well, really? That's the point, is that, but it's not bad to talk about that and examine, is this a man who is driven by hatred of brown people? Or is he just a sort of generally racist guy who says, this is how I'm going to take advantage of the dumb people in this country and get them to vote against their own tax interests? That's what Republicans have been doing for generations.
But he found a really good strategy.
Well, it's like we said in the last episode, and I've heard people mention this before, what Trump did was recognize that the average Republican voter had much uglier politics than the average Republican politician, and that they didn't want to sully themselves with the darkest, most white supremacy related beliefs. And Trump was like, hey, you leaving money on the table.
Oh, that's a good summation.
That's exact. Trump saw all these racist white people who were not being catered to as money on the table.
Well, I also feel like real true conservatives, they have to denounce this party at this point, because this is not the conservative party that they claim that, you know, fiscal conservatism, family values, that none of this, like, you cannot say that you are a conservative and be okay with these tax cuts, be okay with stealing people's children at the border. Like,
they're fine. They love that.
But you can't be a conservative and be okay with these things. So a lot of them, any ones that have, or religious.
Yeah, you can't be religious and be okay with what we're doing to children at the border.
No.
But you can be. I think you can be a Republican because they don't really see them as people. They see them as invaders.
Yeah, or they're just like as victims of their own crimes.
Well,
this is how they see it.
Something that I had read was that there was an incident, I believe, at one of these, I'm going to call it an internment camp, in Pennsylvania, where a woman had been raped by one of the guards there. And so they are drawing up charges against the obviously the security guard that was in charge of her, but the facility itself is saying that they don't believe that they can be held responsible for any sort of sexual misconduct by the guards because these people came into the country illegally, thus forfeiting their rights and consenting to anything that happens to them.
By the way, does anyone notice how familiar that sounds? The last time we heard that almost word for word argument from was about war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Really? When we said that, when Dick Cheney's people came out, I remember saying, well, I think while we would love to stop it legally, there are no laws that affect mercenaries from America in these countries. And it's like, fuck you.
Wait, explain that a little bit more. What does that mean?
That was the thing during the Iraq War when there was exact same situation where there were locals being raped by American mercenaries. Oh. They said that, well, the American military would be subject to military law, which is, court-martial and, obviously the very different ways that they treat these kind of crimes. But if you're one of the many, many mercenaries, contractors, they would call them.
I see.
Yeah, which is basically
I was using the actual word. The term that we used was contractors. They were trying to say that, well, because they're there, they're there under government business, but they're not of the government. Therefore, they're gods and they can rape whoever they want. It was essentially an argument they had.
Shit.
Which, I think, which I don't think was stayed permanently, but it was what Cheney was arguing. And I believe was policy for a while. And that's exactly what they're doing. The very idea, which is, by the way, something that Trump has said before, that cruel and unusual punishment doesn't apply to non-citizens.
Oh, yes.
That's not true because the Geneva Convention applies to all human beings. So there's no such thing as certain people that you can legally do anything to.
Well, he's also withdrawing us from the UN slowly but surely in every way that he can because
that's part
he
of his deal
doesn't.
with Putin.
Geneva Convention.
That's what Putin wanted. Yeah. Putin wanted the destruction of the UN. He wanted the destruction of NATO, and he's getting it through Trump, just because Trump owes Russia something, just like he owes Saudi Arabia something.
What do you think that Putin actually has on him?
I think
multiple things. He has loans. He has loan sharking, and I think he has actual straight up blackmail material.
Oh, I think he has like family members in a basement. Like it's got to be like Tiffany. You know what I mean? Where the fuck is she?
He doesn't care about Tiffany.
He would not give anything.
If he had Ivanka.
No, it's maybe the siblings care about Tiffany. And he's like,
I think the P tape is real. And
I think
everything else in the Steele dossier has come true except the P tape.
Yet.
We are I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're all going to see it.
What's the P tape?
Oh, I'm sorry. God, I'm jealous of you. I'm so jealous of your life.
I try to turn things off every so often.
Sallyann, would you like to?
No, I want to look in her eyes as she learns about the moment. No. So you tell. You're much better at explaining.
You're going to see me.
Okay.
Just slowly
Lia, I'm going to say it as if it's true because that's what I think happened. Okay, so while Donald Trump was running for president, Marco Rubio, I believe it was, did what all of the politicians do. They paid people to investigate each other. Fusion was this company that paid to look into, and they hired Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele is one of the most respected former spies from Britain. He was the person who revealed all the corruption in FIFA, the soccer organization. So he's one of the biggest stars in the spy world, one of the most respectable, trusted people. He came out with a dossier that had all these wild accusations about Trump colluding with Russia. Included in it was Michael Cohen meeting someone representing Russia in Prague, which turns out to be true. Yep. It included Don Jr. meeting with a Russian lawyer about dirt on Hillary Clinton.
In the Trump building.
In the Trump building, which people called crazy. All these things turned out to be true. One of the only things left in the dossier that has not been proven or disproven yet is that while in Russia for the Miss Universe pageant, Donald Trump stayed in a hotel room that Obama and Michelle Obama stayed in while they were in Russia. And Trump specifically requested that he stay in that room. And because of his hatred of Obama, he was given by Putin 2 prostitutes, which I know already you're thinking, no way, not Donald Trump. Not, of course,
not my president.
Not Russian prostitutes. And those two prostitutes were then paid to urinate on the bed that Obama slept in while he watched.
What?
And Trump said, there's no way this is true because I am a clean freak. I'm a germaphobe. And I would never. Now, number one, that's an odd question because no one said he peed on you. You watched from a distance as they did this.
Oh, I
and
thought it was
two,
peeing on him. And
that's what people that's where it got. But the actual dossier was to watch them pee on the bed that Obama slept in.
They did water.
Before having,
he's gone now, right?
No,
I mean like Obama.
Yes, Obama was not in the bed.
Okay.
Obama was gone. And Trump, of course, presumably
Michelle would have killed them.
sex with the prostitutes.
Wait, wasn't Michelle there?
Had sex with the prostitutes
just in the bathroom
also
at
after.
that time?
But here's an important thing
Do you
about that.
think they had sex in the piss bed?
No, they went to another room. But here's the important thing. I think it's a very important point about this.
Put it past him.
He said he wouldn't have done this, and the proof is that he is a germaphobe. He also had unprotected sex with a porn star he just met.
Right.
Stormy Daniels he had unprotected sex with while married to a woman, which, you know, wasn't his, I think she might have even been pregnant at the time.
Yeah, she was.
She was
Think
pregnant
about
with
what
Barron.
kind of a person has unprotected sex with a sex worker while also having unprotected sex with his pregnant wife.
Well, I think that they stopped having sex at that point. But
Well, I mean,
there's no way Melania ever fucked him twice. There's no way.
we should examine the possibility that, I mean, eventually he's going to have sex with his wife again, and he's having unprotected sex with sex workers.
But he's also at the same time
that is not a germaphobe.
had unprotected sex with the Playboy playmate while still having the dalliances with Stormy.
Yeah.
Because that all happened at the same time while
Because she was pregnant
Melania
and
was
disgusting to
pregnant.
him.
Yeah.
Because you know his cheating was all centered around her pregnancy, which I'm sure he was beyond horrified by.
No, there's nothing germophobic about him. Like the way that he eats, like his lifestyle. Like get the fuck. He has he has 12 Diet Cokes a day. He's not concerned about his health.
Yeah. Do you think while Melania was pregnant with his son, he would make little comments like, "Hey, you know, when I married you, you looked a lot different. I don't know." Like, you think that's like the way he jokes?
Oh, I'm sure. Just like constantly, just like, oh, look at her. Look at how mad she is. Look at her face. Oh, like he's got those
he's definitely that guy.
So anyway, that's the piss tape. And here's a little addendum to that. When the story came out, right before he fired James Comey, he said to James Comey, he goes, first he said to the head of the CIA, I need you to put out a statement saying that this has been disproven. And the head of the CIA was like, I can't do that. It's not disproven. And then he said the same thing to Comey. He was like, I want you to put out something that says this isn't true. And then he said to Comey, he goes, I mean, honestly, could you even imagine me with prostitutes? He did it. A guy who is so synonymous with prostitutes would not say that to James Comey if he really thought he was not going to get caught on tape.
Yeah, but like his whole persona is about being like a philanderer, like just fucking all these women, and his whole Vietnam was that he didn't catch any venereal diseases. Like,
well, I mean, he used to call the Daily News as his own publicist with a fake name.
Oh my!
And say Madonna is begging to have sex with him, and and he actually used the words every. He said every Hollywood starlet asks him out. Like, it made me sad because I was like, think of how great it would be if the Daily News had the ball to just run an article and just say the day Donald Trump called and lied to us. Yeah. And pretended to be his own publicist.
Days, probably.
Yeah, no, it happened regularly because he did it under the name John Miller and John Barron because he loved his name Barron, and then he gave it to his son.
Weird name to love.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's a word that means a position of power. And he is the emptiest human being we've ever seen.
He also wishes his wives were as well.
What?
Barron.
Barron? Yes. Well, well, yeah, he didn't really want kids. Because he didn't know that some of them could grow up hot.
Oh yeah, and like until he found one he wanted.
Like, I don't think he actually molests Ivanka. I just think he's so shallow that her physical attractiveness is something that he wants to attach himself to, and that's the only reason she's a good daughter.
Oh yeah, no, and like
I don't know that
I'm sure she got fucking. Anytime talk about when someone gains weight, I'm sure he would fucking make her childhood like miserable, being like, "Oh, getting a little chubby there, Ivanka." Like, and like now she's like, and he's kind of like, "Look what I did! Look what I did with all my teasing and bullying."
If she was the smartest woman on earth, but a 4, he would hate her guts.
Yep.
I don't know that I mean, granted, I have no proof, but I feel like the both of them act like there's been some sort of abuse there. I mean, she definitely, to me, acts like a child of abuse, and he looks like an abuser.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
How so?
Like,
Not for him. Obviously, I know how he looks like an abuser, but like, how does she act that gives you?
well, because like she's a grown woman, and she still acts like a groomed child. Like,
Ooh, yeah.
you know, like daddy, and like, you know, it's just like she's still. I think that the abuse made her emotionally stunted, and she still acts like a 10-year-old girl that is both repulsed and trying to gain the affection of her abuser.
I mean, like I said, I don't think it's that far. I wouldn't be shocked if it was.
Of course.
I just think he's so shallow and so creepy that he's the kind of guy who would just be like, "Hey, you see my daughter? Yeah, you want to fuck her, don't you? Yeah, that came out of me." Because I think it's that much ego to him.
But I think that's the
wouldn't
next
have an
step
ugly
to him
daughter.
is that I can, like, she came out of me, so I can do with her whatever I want.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's very possible.
There's
I
definitely some weird ownership going on.
Definitely.
I just think it might just be how much of a toxic, horrible person he is and not actually sexual. But I don't know.
But here's the thing. He fucking sexually assaults women a lot, all the time, constantly. So
Yes, he does.
it's definitely not beneath him.
No, of course not. I wouldn't, I feel like, when you jump to that conclusion, it gets a little, you put yourself in a position where, you're saying something that they can be like, "Oh, well, look at me." And it's like, well,
Yeah, sure.
get her off your lap then.
Yeah, but I mean, he raped his wife. Like, it's not really that much of a far leap to say that he's capable of raping his own daughter.
Or we know for the fact that
I'm not saying he's a good person.
No. But here's the thing: we know for a fact that he touches her very grossly in public.
In public.
So
and around people.
imagine what happens when it's not. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, and going into like liberal kind of conspiracy theory territory is that allegedly she's the only person allowed in his bedroom, like his private quarters, that Melania is not even allowed in his own bedroom.
I don't buy that.
And that, like I said, liberal
I don't think she wants to go in his
theory,
bedroom.
but that he's got like a private bedroom that he actually sleeps in, not like the one for show or whatever, and that Ivanka is the only one allowed in it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Now-
we could talk like, liberal conspiracy theories, but I think we know now that any man that in the public eye is just capable of monstrous things.
Yeah.
And that, like, especially if someone has just so much documented misogyny in his actions and his words, that it's like to be like, oh yeah, this weird. They're like, it's creepy. It's weird. It's creepy. I'm not saying like
I'm not saying he did it or not, but I'm
it's
saying
gross,
that
and it's not.
Yeah,
it's abusive.
Yeah,
it almost just feels like if there wasn't any opposition or people that were speaking out against, which I'm like amazed that there are so many people that are, especially like in this last election, that so many people turned out to vote and, that are realizing the extent of how insane this is, and not so much with like a blaming kind of thing, but like as a primitive kind of like, no, this actually isn't okay. But it just really concerns me that like that rape and that like sexual harassment is all of a sudden like becoming this like destigmatized, like, just what happens, I mean, it has been. And I had this thing happen, like a couple of years ago, not to like continue talking about
that was the last
experiences.
episode. We should bring it up again.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So new thing. This is a different, experience, but I'm a musician and I had my music, my solo music interested, this guy at a record label was interested in it, and I trusted him as a friend. And then he came to New York. We all hung out with his colleagues, and he started to come on to me, but I was trying to just push it off, and he proceeded to get really drunk and sort of continue to lure me into whatever fantasy he had. And it made me feel so sad and so low, because I was like, oh, the music that I just made that this guy, was, investing his time in and wanted me to hang out with his record label colleagues with, he all of a sudden just, like all he wanted was my body. And so I felt ashamed and then it turns out like after that night, he tried to get me to hang out with him a little bit more, a little bit closer to the place that he was staying at. And of course I declined. And then I got a text message, as soon as I was home, and he was saying, "Hey, where are you?" And I was walking up to my stairs, and I had one of those like crappy phones at the time, just like a T9 phone. Yeah. And I told him, I'm just walking up to my house now. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm about to go to bed." And then and then I get an image, and it's the kind of thing where it's not just something I can like save on my phone or even just like show to people, but it was just like this pixelated, photo of his dick. And it was kind of,
how did you know, Sallyann? How did you guess that?
Something that, I'm sure we've all had it before, but this was just like a very clear picture of someone that used his power to, humiliate both of us. And like a couple months later, I went to the record label and I reported it because it was affecting my life, and it still does affect my life, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fuck him.
Yeah, well,
Thank
no,
God
seriously, fuck him.
Thank
But,
God
but the thing is what I wanted to get to is like even the record label, owners and people that I was speaking to, for one, they said, "Look, like you're now officially like," and they didn't say this so rude or bluntly. I mean, it was very blunt. It was like, "Look, you're the one that came out and spoke up. You were the person that we're going to like know as the woman who filed for this like sexual harassment problem." They got him fired. But
which is
he was
already, unfortunately, one of the much better stories of this. Just the fact that he was fired is already one of the giant victories of this.
It was, and it was amazing because we would have conversations about this, about sexual harassment and about how these things happen and are becoming more, more apparent in different ways. But he's like, if you came to me talking about this stuff 30 years ago, like we would have said, just don't get involved. Ignore it. Yeah, whatever. Like, my mom would never talk about you. Your mom has probably experienced, flashers in the mall and, didn't even think of it as like sexual assault, sexual harassment. It was just
someone, my ex-girlfriend, who you know very well.
Yeah.
Had a very similar, a little bit worse situation where she was assaulted by a coworker.
Awful.
And they punished her. They punished her for publicly humiliating them. Yeah. But you know what? She wouldn't have gone public if you fucking fired him, would she?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I met Harvey Weinstein.
Ooh.
I did. And I only one time.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but only one time. And I didn't even work for him. I was just like working in a film office where he had a project, but not on his project. But he was lost, and he comes in, and of course I know who he is. And he is having a phone conversation, and he walks into my office where I'm sitting there with like an editor, and he just continues his conversation and makes like unblinking eye contact with me, a woman he's never met. And I just stare, and I like look at my coworker kind of like, "What's the protocol?" And he's just like typing away, like not even, I'm like, okay. Anyway, so he just continues the conversation, walks into my boss's room, who is black, and he goes, "Where's the bathroom?" Even though he was like, I was clearly like the
person,
this receptionist, right? And I was
he's
like,
been staring at this whole time.
No fucking kidding. So I go and so my boss kind of like, "What? Harvey Weinstein? What the fuck?" And I just go like, "Oh, sir, hello. I can show you." And he like looks at me like, ugh. Like what is this woman? Like,
this was before all the stuff.
This was this is a couple years ago. Yes. So what happened, and this story gets fucking weirder. So he follows me very slowly to the, bathroom, but it has a door that has a code on it. So I have to type in the code, hold it open for him.
Right.
And instead of walking through the door, we stop by a desk, and on it has a jar full of Werther's Original. And he literally stops, opens, like stares at me. I'm holding a fucking door, and he just unwraps it slowly and puts it in his mouth. And I swear to God, he eats the whole thing in front of me while I'm holding the door. And my friend who was in the room just kind of watching, like he was at the desk, and he's just staring at me. And I was like, what fucking planet am I on? Do you know how long it takes to eat a Werther's
Was
original?
he sucking it or crunching it?
It was like click clacking. It was like a half suck, half chew.
Okay, so a few minutes, and he's making eye contact with you this whole time.
It's like, well,
While he's chewing it.
it's a power move. And so anyway, then he goes in the bathroom, doesn't say it. And so I come back into the room and I'm like, what the fuck? Did you see what just happened? And he goes, and they're like, because first off, why was he in our room having a phone conversation at full volume when we're working?
Right.
And then he goes, oh yeah, Harvey, he's like really famous for going in and staring at people until he realizes that they don't work for him, but he can do it because he knows he has that power. And then I was like, he just fucking made me watch him start and finish a hard candy. And they were like, yeah, that's weird. But so honestly, when they're like an accusation, I'm like, he did it. He did it. He's guilty. And I'm like, this is a woman that he didn't even meet, that he just saw. And he was like, I'm seeing an opportunity to make her comfortable. I'm going to take it. I think that's exactly how Trump is around the office. That wouldn't surprise me at fucking all.
If he hasn't sexually harassed Hope Hicks, I would be fucking shocked. Now, I have a question for both of you. I have one question. First, I'll ask Sallyann. When he was like doing that, when you told this story to people, did someone, and I'm going to go ahead and even make a qualifier, did someone in your family hear this story and say, well, you are trying to make it in the business, aren't you?
Oh God, no. And also, I never actually told that story until the Harvey Weinstein thing came out, because sexual harassment is so common to me that I was just like, oh yeah, one time I guess he did that. That was weird. I saw him eat a hard candy. That was weird. But then after this came out, I was like, oh, that was much darker than
you realized.
Yeah.
And my other question was for Lia, to back up. The guy who sent you the dick pic.
Yeah.
And I don't have a case here. I'm actually just curious. Do you think he was doing that because he thought you would actually be like, oh my God, what a delicious penis. I have to have it right now. Come over. Or was it, since you've been so mean to me and not had sex with me and all these times I wanted to, I'm going to throw this in your face.
Yeah, I think it was like, it was almost as if it was like a strike one, strike two, strike three. Like, I dodged every single
so he thought
opportunity.
It might work.
Yeah. So
like
he was like, my last hope, my last chance. She's going to get her own taxi cab and race over to me and suck my dick.
A hopeful dick pic. A hopeful and bitter
it
dick
was
pic.
actually very, very incredible, because he, didn't even go to the point of taking off his shoes or his pants. So, and the photo is like all pixelated and everything. I mean, I see that. I looked at it for maybe 5 seconds, and
what is he showing me?
My response verbatim was, "It's amazing that you think this kind of stuff turns me on."
Good answer.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
He was like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry." I could feel himself squirming and his dick slowly starting
Now,
to
here's
like.
the second question. Was it when he sent you the dick pic, was it erect?
Yes.
Oh, big mistake. I only send soft dick pics. Number one, it's more polite. It's less menacing.
It's more of
realistic.
It's like a knock on the door, like a knock. Shall I proceed?
It's also a bit of a challenge. I'm also saying, hey, look, not everything gets this guy to work. I'm presenting.
I don't know.
This
That's what I like to see. I like to see a chore. I'm like,
but in all seriousness, to me, as a guy who dates, and I've been brazen with women, in terms of like that I'm already with, I'll send a dick pic if a girl asks for it. If we're already fucking.
If
we're already
demand
fucking.
dick pics,
right? Which is fine.
From men that I fucked. I'm at work and I just go, give me a dick pic, and they're like, why? I'm like, not even sexual. I just want it. I like the power.
Yeah. I totally endorse that.
Thank you.
But it's odd to, if you date someone long distance, you're going to send pics of each other. That's normal. But you didn't like this guy. You never made out with this guy.
No.
You didn't give him anything.
No.
And even if you had, that would make it okay.
Yeah.
But it just speaks to how fucking crazy this guy is.
I mean, and it's like the thing that really was unfortunate about it is the label that was interested is a is to me, being like this underground musician that looks up to all kinds of different musicians from decades ago and sees how they started out. It was that kind of record label where you're like, women are on this record label, like, currently that I look up to that I think are some of the most incredible, liberating, like feminist voices of music at the moment. So it was a shocker, and it was a shocker to everybody that worked there as well.
Good.
But, it was,
thank God
unfortunate.
you blew the whistle on this because
I still saw him at festivals after that. So I don't think it changed much.
The record industry in LA, especially, it's so disappointing when you hear this, especially from the the bigger record companies.
The what? No comment.
Inside joke. Sorry. No,
they're so 2010,
Yeah, I know. I just remember that being a thing because we used to, Lia's one of the most talented musicians I've ever, you may have heard. I mean, you've been in a lot of bands. I first saw your bands when it was Peter Pants.
Yeah. And I remember you like months, maybe even a year or two after, we were still active, but you came up to me and you were like, now I get it. Peter Pants.
It took me a while. I thought it was just a Peter Pan pun. Then it was like Pete her pants. I was like, oh, that's actually a very good pun.
Yeah. Thank Jessica for that.
You guys did my C-Lab episode. I when I had a lot more time in my hands, I wrote and fully animated an entire C-Lab episode. Like everything, pencil, pen, color. Cause my friend is the main character from it, Dr. Quinn. So it was his idea. And then he ended up making me do all the work. So I'm actually very proud of it. It's a full 11-minute C-Lab episode that looks pretty much like a real episode. And we had
did the theme song.
We had you guys do the theme song. It's, please, for the love of God, anyone look up C-Lab 2075. If you're one of the 7 people listening right now, I would love to see the difference. I'm very proud of that. I think it's basically Dr. Quinn goes 50 years in the future of C-Lab and everyone's racist.
Yeah, it was a good one.
But he co-wrote it, so I can get away with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm glad we got into that discussion because we ran out of news stories I wanted to touch upon. No, it's as a guy, as a straight guy, it's just not something I'm ever going to have to really deal with.
Yeah. And there was the question that you just asked, that I had like a little anecdote of a response from my father, regarding like, the stories that I've told him. And, just for anyone who's listening, I don't talk about this stuff on a regular basis. Dave and I have actually like had this open sort of like conversation about these things for quite some time. And I've really appreciated his support in my life and in, many people's lives to be able to process this stuff like with a sense of humor.
We're going to have to cut that. It goes against my branding.
I'm sorry. Please don't. But yeah, so, I was clued in when the trials with, Christine Blasey Ford were going on and Kavanaugh and I talked to my dad a couple hours later. My parents, they live in Europe. So the only way that I get to talk to them is over Skype, and it's maybe like every few weeks or so. Oh. So this was one of the rare moments that I got to talk to my dad, and he goes, "Have you been watching the trials?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have." And of course, like, as I'm sure everybody, every woman at least, like, felt this, like, overwhelming. Trigger.
Oh. I remember I like blurted out to my, I was getting like, a wax, like a Brazilian. And then she was like, "How are you doing?" And I'm just like, "Oh God, these trials." And she was like, "I meant like since you last saw me, like, how's your pussy?" And I'm just like, "Oh, it's fine. Thank you."
Yeah. It was, I was quite triggered by it.
Yeah.
And, so my dad, he's like, "Are you watching the trials?" He's like, it sounds a lot like the story, experience of what you went through.
Wow.
And I mean, it was very uncomfortable to have my, like, I love him.
I didn't think
to
about
death.
that, but that's true.
Yeah. But it was kind of, it was, I mean, I would imagine that everybody would sort of have that that weight of, like, oh, I can relate to this in a certain way. But it was kind of scary. I read books all the time and I read stuff and I'm like, oh, I can relate with that. But, when you're watching something as heavy as a trial, maybe not even like conscious of how much it can.
I feel like every woman
you.
has experience and similar, and like I didn't have anything like exactly the same as you, but like especially when you're in entertainment or entertainment adjacent. And what I think is so interesting is that it's regardless of the man's position that they still think that they can get away with these kinds of things. And so like I recently had a situation that was been, on my Facebook, but there was a comic that used to do my shows, and he used to send me messages like good morning, beautiful, winky faces, stuff like that. I would just ignore it because
you can just say it's Louis C.K.
And but anyway, and so like he would just send this stuff and I would just ignore it. But then if he asked me about a show, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, we're having the show at this time, blah, 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 where you need to do this or whatever. And then he'd go back to like the winky faces and I'd ignore it. And I just figured over time he'd get the hint that I'm not answering any of this winky face shit. Right. And so then finally he was just like, oh, I hope that we're not related because you're so hot. And I was just
related?
like, we have the same last name.
Oh.
And so
is he black?
Maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe we
right.
have the same last name.
Okay. Now we are kind of narrowing down who this is now. I'm sorry. Go on.
So I'm not trying to give him like
well, your name is Smith. This means nothing.
Yeah,
Go on.
exactly. Exactly. So like, I was just like, listen, let's keep this professional. And he was just like, okay, I was just kidding. And I was just like, fine, well, whatever. And then he asked me about something comedy related. I answered him. And then he's like, now to get back to my family problems. And then I just blocked him. Cause it's like, like I don't need him. Like I'm producing the show you're on. You're not my producer. You don't own this venue. There's no reason. First of all, as of just a human being, there's no reason for you to think that you can do this. But second of all, you have no authority over me to think that you're going to get away with doing this if I've already told you to stop. And so then fine, like I blocked him on Facebook. Now it's a year later and he had screenshot something that I posted on Instagram, and it was like some weirdo from a dating app that was saying that like, oh, you're disgusting, you're ugly, blah, blah, blah. And so like I just post as like, shits and giggles, like, hey, look, my biggest fan. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this. Because like I'm a comic, like I'm going to do that. And so then he posted on his Instagram, oh, if I find this guy, I'm going to give him a handshake and a beer and this, that, and the other thing. And like,
lovely.
So now all of a sudden, this guy that I blocked on Facebook a year ago starts following me on Instagram. I'm like, I blocked you on Facebook. Why are you following me on Instagram? I go to his page and I see that he had posted this screenshot of my Instagram of this thing. So then I'm just like, oh, all right. So now you want, and he's just like, oh, she's a conceited bitch and she's a cunt and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, okay. So I have receipts. Maybe if you weren't sexually harassing me, I wouldn't have blocked your ass a year ago. You still mad? And so then he's just like, yeah. So now he's like, oh, she's a cunt, blah, blah, blah. Spends like 10 minutes on his podcast calling me a cunt, posting on his Instagram, calling me a cunt. This, and it's just like, all because like I blocked you?
Because you didn't fucking pick up on my fucking
hints?
hints?
You owe me your pussy. That's what this guy is saying. He's saying, like, if I show you attention, you owe me something back.
It's like, I have blocked guys that are way more talented and attractive than you.
Oh, God. I know. Like the caliber of men who believe they are entitled to my body. I'm just like, just as a person of attractiveness, I'm insulted just from the get-go. What do you think is going to work out for you? Like these trolls of
trauma.
men.
Know your lane, guys.
Yeah. Childhood trauma, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right. They just aren't digging deep enough in themselves.
You know how funny it is? I get to feel this incredible sense of superiority for the fact that since I was a kid, I bail the second I get the slightest opposition. Yes. To the point like movies would tell me about how much persistence works. And I was always the guy who was like as a kid especially, it was always, my entire subtext was, I know you don't like me. I'm going to keep my head down. And the second you say anything that validates that, I'm going to never speak to you again. Yes. And now I found out I was a hero. Apparently I was doing everything right.
No, yes. Well, I know.
That I was so terrified of women. The very idea of going up to a woman in the street was always the craziest thing in the fucking world
because
to me.
That is what makes sense. That is what is Why
don't I just punch a pit bull in the face while I'm at it?
No, like honestly, I don't because I'm aggressive and I hit on guys. So when I do that, but like I get rejected, not a lot, but it's happening.
Girl, I'm getting real rejected.
No one's perfect. So when I get like the slightest hint, I'm like, hey, do you want to like hang out? And he's like, actually, I'm like, then forget the whole thing. Like when guys when they'll like. I've had this happen when I was in my early 20s when guys would like beg for blowjobs that like even though they could see that I was like not into it, but they're like, please just do it. And then I
took you to Applebee's.
Well, and then I kind of went like, all right. And then they were like still fine with it. If a guy is not like super psyched to go down on me, I'm like, well then forget it. Well then don't do it. Oh my God, that ruins it for me. But guys like begrudging sexual favors still count. Like how?
Yeah.
Because it's a power thing.
Here's some advice to the fellas. You know who gives a great blowjob? A girl who doesn't want to. Mm-hmm. Like, how good would it possibly have been when you're doing it like it's your fucking homework your mom is making you do?
Majority
honestly,
of
still really good because.
Well, okay, hold on, Leah.
What?
Don't say things you can't take back. That is not
give and receive. That's all I'm saying.
No. I was saying. I thought you were saying the majority of women don't want to do it.
Well,
yes,
no.
Some do.
Yeah, some do.
Here. Hashtag not all women.
When you're in the moment, you're in the moment.
Here's what I think. I think that there's a whole spectrum about how women feel about sucking dick, and like on one extreme they hate it, and on the other extreme they'll do it. That's it.
That's not true.
There is no one who's like, you know how when we're home like masturbating, we're not like I want a big fucking dick in my mouth. I want it in the back of my throat. You know how we masturbate? We don't put fingers in our mouths. Like let's just say that.
I get that. However,
or dildo.
And I 100% assume you're right about it being the majority.
Please have the hill that you die on.
No,
this is the fight. This is the fight we're having.
I will die on this hill.
And you're like
we're
women
dying on blowjob.
Let me tell you about women.
I will die on this hill and say, and I mean this 100%, that I have known not just ones who were blowing me, but I've had friends
blowing
that were both
other
women
friends
and men who have told me that they simply love doing it.
Well,
I
men
know
love
men
doing
that
it.
love blowjobs. I don't know,
Yeah.
No, I'm talking men giving.
Yes.
I've known gay men who love giving blowjobs.
Yeah.
And
Those are the ones who
and
like
I have
it.
known a few women. Now, granted, those women don't want to blow anyone.
Yes.
They like blowing men they're in relationships with, but I've had friends of mine. I'm not going to say names. You know her. And I've never hooked up with her, but she's told me like, she loves.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying that women haven't told you that. I'm saying it's not true. Like you are misunderstanding
I'm saying this is
completely.
what I never hooked up with
like
that I was just friends with.
No, but I think that they're still trying to act like they're cool. It's like one of those things,
women
like,
say it to me, and I'm just like, I know that you don't. Like you might like be like, like sometimes I'm like, I'm feeling fun.
It's like I orgasm from intercourse. You're lying. Like,
no,
I kind of do.
Oh, when people say I don't feel like eating. You're lying. It's fucking bullshit.
Plenty of women orgasm from intercourse too.
I do.
Just,
maybe not more than half, but a lot of women.
You need other things.
I'm so triggered.
Yeah, you need other not just intercourse alone. Like you need an array of things to happen and a full moon.
74 degrees exactly.
Yeah.
The wind blowing from the north.
His penis needs to curve in a 45-degree angle.
He needs to smell like your dad. No, I'm just like, oh, what? I'm sorry. What are we talking about?
You mean like Vietnam and
my ex-girlfriend, well, you know her, Hannah. I can say this. When my ex-girlfriend Hannah, she had to tell her dad to change his deodorant because he started using mine.
Well, biologically, women, and I'm not a big fan of saying biologically as a feminist, but biologically, women, we are actually repelled by the scent of our fathers.
Yeah.
So that we don't
evolutionarily, yeah.
Evolutionarily,
it's the same reason brothers and sisters hate each other around puberty. It's genetic.
Oh,
it
really?
stops them from fucking each other.
You know what? Since I've never had a brother, I was trying to say I ship brother and sister so hard. Whenever I watch a movie, I'm just like, fuck. What's the reason for that?
because you don't have because you don't know what it's like to have a brother, so you can't visualize why they don't fuck.
Because Game of Thrones, I'm like, you know what?
Whereas I have a beautiful sister, 3 beautiful cousins, so like I know what it's like to be able to look at a beautiful woman and want to throw up your intestines at the idea of them naked.
Okay, but like cousins, because I've got some hot cousins that when people are like, I fucked my cousin, I'm like, I'm not saying I approve, but I get it.
I'll tell you, no, my cousins, I'm talking about 3 cousins, I am not blood related to any of them. And they are beautiful. And even saying this right now, I'm starting to start to throw up. Like just even having to have, because
I wish I could feel that repulsion for someone I love.
Because I knew them when they were babies.
Right.
I saw them when they were babies. Sure. I have nieces who are 13 now. It doesn't matter what they look like when they're adults. They will always be babies.
Well, so this is like a cultural thing, though. This isn't biological.
Yes. Yeah, if I was not raised with them, it would be different.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to wrap up, don't we? Let's keep going for another second. I want to have this incest conversation.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't pay attention to sense really, but I do notice the behaviors of, and I think this is also a genetic thing or something that's been proven that like women tend to be attracted to people who remind them of their father.
Oh.
I mean, in behavioral sense of sense.
I'm the exact opposite. Like, if a guy reminds me of my dad at all, it's completely off. It's just
your dad is still playing a role in your sexuality, though, because you're attracted to the opposite of it. You know what I mean? Like the father figure is still so ingrained in
or are you
sexual
not even
development.
Thinking about that? You're just kind of.
I think it's like it started subconsciously, and then I started realizing as soon I might like a guy, and then he might say something that my dad might say, and I'm like, if I find out he's he's the same, he's a cop because my dad was a cop, I'm like, no, it's just anything at all.
But your dad would also say things like, I know I'm black too, but Jesus, these people. Your dad was really, your dad was the most racist black cop I've ever heard of.
Oh, well, they're all racist.
Then. Yeah.
I have tons of cops in my family. They're all racist.
Your best joke is, I've come from a family of black cops, and people think cops are racist. It's not true. People think white cops are racist. It's not true. Black cops are racist too.
Yeah. They're all, yeah.
Have you seen, what is it? I just watched it. Accidental Courtesy?
No.
Daryl Davis. Oh, it's this documentary. It's on Netflix now. I just watched it 2 days ago, and it's about a man who's this really kind of standard, I don't know, overweight gentleman who graduated, I think, from Brown University, and he's a musician, but
Go Browns.
He's black, and he befriended multiple members of KKK.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, I read about this guy. He's amazing.
So wait, but the whole thing, so I watched the entire, I mean, it was fascinating up until the point when he interviewed 2 Black Lives Matter activists and men who were living in where was it? I think it was Baltimore. I'm not 100% sure, but there was everything. There were a bunch of protests going on, and his reaction to the men who were sort of interrogating him, but for good reason. It was all of a sudden he called them ignorant, and sort of accused them of being, on the wrong side of things or not paying attention, because they were saying why are you spending your time befriending these men who oppress us and have oppressed us for
But isn't this the guy who was known for
now.
collecting hood
yes.
He was known for collecting clan robes of the men that he got to quit the clan. So I am on his side of there.
Yeah.
If they're telling him that he's wrong to do that, then go fuck themselves.
Yeah, well, so
they are not representative of all Black Lives Matter people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, you shouldn't be telling people how to deal with their own oppression. To act against it, to fight against it in the way that they see fit. Why?
This man has a collection of robes that he's gotten from men who quit.
I think it's incredible. But he wants to make a museum out of it, and what the guys that he was having this dispute with were saying was that he was trying to create a name for himself and recognition, and fabricate this
he's this savior figure that he's going and he's converting these white supremacists into being less bigoted, but in return he's actually gaining notoriety and fame because he thinks that he's this savior figure.
Does he act like a savior figure, or is he just saying, hey,
What's the documentary called?
It's called Accidental Courtesy.
Accidental Courtesy.
I think everybody should watch it because he is I think like he is an incredible person and doing the job that he, feels needs to happen from, a very like incremental
It sounds
way.
like people are it sounds like the argument of, Inglourious Bastards. Like, we can't let them take their robes off. We need to punish them forever. And it's like, yeah, but do you want things to get better or not?
Yeah. And that's his argument is how do we make everything in the, how do we like forgive all of these, awful people, for, what they've done, or how do we try to find like a compromise in the middle so that we can all get along?
It's definitely something we should check out. I'm sorry, we have to go.
Okay.
We have to go. We have to wrap up. Sorry. But thank you for bringing that up. I definitely want to see that. That's a very fascinating story. I would like to see that actual argument.
Yeah.
To get more context
I'm actually
about
curious about what anyone would think just in that small section of the.
I mean, that's what we should be listening to. Anyway, we got to go. Sallyann, where can we see you on Twitter and stuff?
I am headlining Caroline's Breakout Artist January 22nd, 7:30. Go to funnysallyann.com for checkout.
That's so much fun. I did that 2 years ago.
You did it?
It was so great. Yeah, I didn't get enough people, but Lia, is there anything you want to plug? Any gigs coming up?
Yeah, we're playing at this place called Elsewhere in New York or Brooklyn, with this band called Ice Age on Tuesday, the 27th, if anyone wants to come out.
Probably won't be out by then. Sorry.
No, well, yeah. No, that's true.
My bad. Maryssa?
You can, if you're enjoying the show, please rate and review us on iTunes. Follow the show on Twitter at The Blamestorm. Follow me on Twitter at Maryssa Smith, and check out my other podcast, Big Talk and Brewskis.
And Lia, what is the website for your band?
I don't know. You could find us on Instagram.
What's the name of your band one more time?
A Place to Bury Strangers.
A Place to Bury Strangers. Look up A Place to Bury Strangers. You'll find out where they are. Unbelievable band. Really, honestly, one of the best musicians I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.